Hey, I'm Max Carter, and you're watching a brand new episode of The Max Carter Show. Today's guest is coming from a very sunny Irvine, California, and let me tell you, I've been wanting to meet her for a very long time. So, after all those months of planning, I'm happy to report that Mayor Farrah of Irvine is here with us today to tell you more about leadership and answer questions like what does it take to be a mayor and what was it like taking the office during the pandemic. We will also address sustainability issues and California's commitments to addressing net carbon zero pollution by no later than 2045 under a new law signed by Governor Gavin Newsom. And finally, Mayor Can is nothing short of an inspirational figure. She came into the office shattering glass ceilings by becoming the first woman of color to hold the office and the first Muslim woman to lead a large city in the United States. I'm sure we have a lot to cover today, so please enjoy my conversation with Mayor Farrah Khan. Mayor Khan, thank you very much for joining the Max Carter Show. I'm excited to have this conversation with you today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure.
I would love to jump straight in. I'm curious, I'm sure a lot of my viewers would love to know, what does it take to be a mayor? And is it the way you imagine it to be?
You know, being mayor is a lot of responsibility. And so when I decided to run for mayor, and I was a current council member at the time, I knew sort of what I was getting into, but I also knew it was important at that time, during the pandemic, during a lot of the social injustice issues we were faced with, that we needed leadership that would be able to bring the community together. And that was important. But yes, it is a lot of responsibility when you're having to deal with such a diverse community with different points of views and different needs to be able to fulfill them.
And talking about communities, especially in times like these today, how do you bring them, all of us together?
You can't do that when you're in the role. That happens long before you even get to that role. So for me, I've been working with our community here in Irvine and throughout Orange County for many, many years. And so I already have those connections. And so being in this position when you're faced with certain things, like right now, recently, with the shootings with our API community that happened in Monterey Park and Half Moon Bay, it was important for me to be at all the Lunar New Year events and let the community know that yes, we mourn the lives lost and it's tragic, but at the same time, this is where we build ourselves up. We make sure that we're keeping in touch with our neighbors and our friends and coworkers, listening to their needs and making sure that we are there for them. Sometimes it takes a person to just have someone to talk to, and if we're not opening our doors up to our own community, then we're doing them an injustice. So it's important for us to be out there, to be able to make new friends, to be able to just build that community up stronger than ever before.
I love to hear that. I also think it's all about being open, as you mentioned, open to community, open to your neighbors. And I think this is something we can use in our own lives as well to be stronger
Absolutely.
together.
Absolutely.
There are little girls all over the United States and the world that take you as an example and want to be in politics. What advice do you have for them?
Wow. Um, I think my advice for them is just to, before you even think about a role in an elected position, know your community, know the people that you're hoping to serve. Because I see many times people want to be in this role, but they don't have connection to community. And then what happens is the community feels left out of the conversation. And that should never happen. I always say that I'm a public servant first, and that is my role is to serve the public. And if I don't even know who my public is, how am I going to be able to do that job the best that I can? And so I always tell people, no matter what you're hoping to accomplish, get to know your community, know their needs, have them get to know you, because the more comfortable they feel with you, the more trusting they will be of you, and then you can actually accomplish some of the goals that you set out for.
Yeah, and how do you get to know them?
Just for me, it started off small. So when I first moved to Irvine in 2004, My boys were very little, so I got involved in the school. So I became a PTA mom, and got to know my parent community that way. And then throughout the years, as I was transitioning, excuse me, transitioning out of my professional job, I got into working with nonprofits, volunteering my time with different nonprofits, and then ended up being, called to lead a local nonprofit as their executive director. So again, building community through various resources that you have and getting to know people. And then when you do the work, when you're out there building your networks, people get to know you, you get to know the people, you hear what the needs are. And really that's how I got started, is I would hear things from the community, and I would show up at the council meetings during my 3 minutes and say, hey, this is what the community needs. And then ended up wanting to help people that were going to be responsive of the community to go into office. But it wasn't until 2014 when I was volunteering on a campaign, and the candidate's husband and I were talking about diversity in leadership. And I said, in Irvine, we didn't see it. And so he basically said, I hope you're not thinking about running. And I said, I'm not, but why not? And he's like, because with a name like yours, you're unelectable. And that got me thinking, if I'm hearing this today in 2014, what am I expecting of our next generation? What are they going to be facing? And so, you kind of understand where you fit in. The more you're out there, the more you're talking to people, and that's really what got me started in politics.
And how was that running experience like?
Oh gosh, my first time was horrible. It's hard. It's really politics is a very difficult endeavor. It's people get very nasty, and if you don't have a bad character, they'll create a bad character. And so my first time in 2016, I think I cried through most of my campaign time, because I was like, I people are saying all these horrible things that aren't even me, and you learn from those mistakes. I didn't win that year in 2016, but I was encouraged by many people to run again in 2018. And when I did, I learned that when people are pointing fingers at you and they're putting you down, that's when you need to be out in the public even more, letting them know that this is what you stand for. This is where I'm coming from. And in 2018, I was the top vote getter.
And how was the second time different from that first running experience you had?
The second time, I think I owned everything that was being said about me, right? So the first time people were like, they discounted the fact that I was a regulatory affairs manager for a major biotech company, that I was the executive director of a nonprofit. They kept saying, oh, she's just a PTA mom. And I was, the first time I was like, oh my gosh, why are they saying that? I'm more than that. But then the second time I was like, yes, I am a PTA mom. And you know what PTA moms do? They take care of the kids in the schools. They make sure that there's funding coming in. They make sure that your kids have extracurricular activities. And that's something that we can continue to do in the city level. And so it was really taking all the negativity that was being thrown at me and pivoting it into something positive.
I love to hear that. And I think that's the kind of personality I aspire to be. Many people do. Because on a daily basis, you meet things, you see people that, things happen, but it's also
Right.
about transforming it and again, getting positive things out of that. I love to hear that.
Absolutely.
And I was actually reading an article another day, and it was about that the next generation of leaders are positive leaders, are kind leaders. I'm curious, what kind of leader do you think you are?
I'm absolutely a kind leader. I don't like, um, you know, uh, fighting with people. I don't like creating chaos. I'm always like, let's find the solution. Let's collaborate. Let's compromise when we need to. And I think we need more of that. You know, uh, Politics right now is still, the same old. And I think what I'm looking forward to in our next generation of leaders is changing that dynamic, saying that yes, we can have different points of views, but we don't have to attack one another. We can talk things out. We can be adults and really encourage collaboration and encourage listening and hearing and making decisions that we know are going to be beneficial for the majority of the people.
For sure. And with the amount of work that needs to be done today, how do you prioritize it?
It's, I get a lot of help. So I do have staff members. I have a staff of three that are with me, and they help me with scheduling. They help me with special events, and some of them attend some of the meetings that I go to. And it is a juggling situation because I'll tell you, like my Monday morning today started at 7:30 in the morning, and it's going to end probably at 8 p.m. at night. And it's demanding, but you also have to realize that you can't be everywhere. And so for me, I always communicate with people, let them know where I can be, where I cannot, if I can send a staff member in my place, or sometimes it's just making sure that if I'm besides a meeting, if we can do an email or a brief phone call, then we'll make that happen as well. But it is really taking care of the highest priorities and in including everyone else in between. But most importantly, taking care of yourself as well.
For sure. And building that team, right? As you mentioned, it's you can't do it all by yourself. And I think actually having that team, it enables you to do even more and being more, bringing more positive change to the world. And I'm
Absolutely.
curious, how was your experience building that team? Were you involved in hiring, and how do you make sure that everyone stays optimistic and on goal set?
Absolutely. When I was first elected in 2018, I had two young women that were helping me on the campaign side, and they were both dynamic, just above and beyond my expectations. And they were both, one was, I think they were both just about to graduate from college. And so I asked them, I said, do you guys have any jobs lined up? If not, I'd love to bring you on as my staff. And it was really exciting to have them join me because one ended up, she left me, but she went on to UC Berkeley School of Law, and she just graduated from there. And she's going to be an amazing attorney now. The other ended up leaving me for 1 year for a fellowship at the congressional level. So she lived in DC for 1 year and worked with Congresswoman Judy Chu, and then came back and is now my chief of staff. So I think it's, for me, it was important to open up the doors for our young generation so that they get an idea of what it's like working in local office and be able to gain that experience.
And I'm sure it brings you a lot of joy to see people grow and mature within the roles as well.
Absolutely.
And talking about you and your learning opportunities, who are your mentors and what are some of the most meaningful lessons you've learned from them?
Gosh, I have so many mentors. I think um, really throughout my journey, there have been men and women, and sometimes even youth that have been such great inspiration for me. And for me, it's really, as you're tackling different issues, you find different people that might bring that expertise or their experience to help and guide. And for me, it's, some are politicians, some are in the business community, some are just my family members, and really having people that you can lean on is so important. And I wouldn't be doing justice if I just named a few because there are so many.
And a lot of people really don't like going into politics, right? They don't like politicians. Do you know how can we change that? How can we make people more involved in politics, especially the younger generation?
I think the only way to change the way politics are right now is for more people to get involved that don't like what they see. You can't change it from the outside, right? You have to get in. It's a little dirty, it's a little messy, but we need more and more people. Like we said before, we need more people that want to lead with kindness. They want to lead with compassion. They want to lead in a way that we don't see leadership right now. And so the only way to bring that change about in the whole system is to have more and more people with that kind of mindset.
And were you ever concerned about getting out of touch with people of Irvine?
No, not at all. I think uh, one of the reasons I love local office is the connection that you have with the people. And for me, I'd rather be out in the community than sitting in a meeting any day because that's really where you hear what the needs are of the community and what they're happy with, what they're not happy with. And so I wouldn't be in this position if it wasn't for the people.
And I would assume most of your day it's being out there with the people of Irvine and, touring places and making sure that the progress gets made.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And what are some of your most favorite parts about being mayor?
I think my most favorite parts about being mayor are just the good policies and changes that you can make directly for your community, right? So in Irvine, for me being mayor, in our 50, we're 51 now, but we celebrated our 50th anniversary a year ago. We celebrated for the first time Pride Festival. We celebrated for the first time Juneteenth. We celebrated for the first time Mid Autumn Festival and a Hispanic Heritage Day. And so for me, those were really important because those were folks that had never been celebrated before. The policies that we've had did not build on inclusivity. It did not build on celebrating diversity. And to make those small changes that are so impactful was really the highlight of all that I've done. And you see that when you're at the events and you hear people saying, "Thank you for seeing me and for celebrating who I am." That made my day. I can tell you, I could hear that day after day, and it would just make me happy knowing that people feel that they are a part of this fabric that we call Irvine, and that they feel that they are the connection that we need to build this city and make it the best it can be.
And it's always about those little things that make a big difference.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Touching back on the whole COVID experience, I think all of us, for me personally, my whole university, I've been through COVID. I'm a class of 2024, right? And what was it like for you? What was it like taking office during the pandemic? And was the COVID pandemic the most challenging task you had to overcome?
I think it was one of the hardest because none of us had gone through this and we were learning as we were going along. And I think the hardest part was, you try to do your best, but sometimes for a lot of people, either you were doing too much or you weren't doing enough. And everyone was in a different mindset of where we should be during the pandemic. But I think the importance was communication. So during the pandemic, I made sure that I was going on our county's website to look at our specific numbers for the city, what was going on, where vaccinations were available. And when we weren't able to get the vaccines from the county directly, I started calling our hospitals, and saying, "Hey, do you guys have vaccines?" And they were like, "We might have 100 extra." I'm like, "All right, we've got seniors. Let's match them up." And that's how we started building these smaller clinics. And, it was through these connections, with multiple hospitals that we were able to vaccinate our senior citizen population without the county's help. And then we moved on to the next tier, which was like your first responders and your teachers and things like that. And people kept looking at us like, why is Irvine, why are their vaccination rates increasing so rapidly? Like, who's helping them out? And then they got mad at the county. They were like, the county's helping Irvine. And the county's like, we're not helping Irvine. And it was really, again, those relationships that we had built with our community that I was able to pick up that phone and say, help me. If you have extra vaccines, I don't care if you have 50 or 100, help me get some of those into our residents. And that's how we were able to accomplish so much. We did the same thing with our businesses. I was out and about visiting our business owners and in talking to them about their needs. And then we developed the Irvine Cares program, making sure that the public understood that when you walk into a business, put that mask on, not only to protect yourself, but protect the workers that are working. And then we wanted to make sure that, everyone understood the need to help one another. And I think that took so much of my time. But I'm glad that I was out in the community, that I was out talking to folks, because it helped us guide the policies and the programs that we needed to bring our community together, to get them to understand. We put out messages in multiple languages. We had pastors and rabbis sending messages out to the community. We were just trying to get to everyone that we could, to help them understand the importance of everyone being on the same page. Because if we weren't, then we weren't going to be coming out of this successfully.
And has this pandemic changed you at all?
It has. It's brought me to realize that in just a snap of a finger, our lives can change drastically. I mean, because people's businesses were shut down, they were at home, and not only that, but we're seeing the ramifications of that through all the mental health issues that we're facing, especially with our youth, that are having connectivity issues, that are now going back to school and kind of understanding how everything's going to be normal again. And so I think a lot of it has to be uh, just looked at on a wider scale, where 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 are we now? Where have we been? And where do we need to fill in the gaps? And I think the biggest gap we're seeing right now is health and wellness, especially when it comes to mental health. And so now our focus is making sure that we have the resources available to take care of our community.
Yes, for sure. I think for me, it was suddenly I felt just out of touch with
Yeah,
everyone else, out of touch with my community, even my friends, my family, because I
yeah,
couldn't visit them and things like that, especially for Christmas. And when we opened up, it was really hard for me to get back into that. And it was
yes.
just an experience that I really would not want to relive again.
Right, right. And then it was hard on a lot of people. And so we definitely want to make sure that we're taking care of folks and helping them through this difficult time. I mean, even during the pandemic, I would host this quarterly town hall on Zoom with our middle and high schoolers, just to hear them out, just to make sure that they had some sort of connectivity with each other. And we would do activities on Zoom, so they would get to know that there was a community there still, even though they were in their homes, not able to go out and see friends, that we could build a community in other ways.
What kind of activities were there?
Oh, we would have like, those icebreakers, asking them different questions, and asking them what they would do in situations. So it was just to get them to kind of speak up and be a part of the group.
Again, doing those little things, right?
Absolutely.
How do you see Irvine in 15 years?
I see Irvine as being a major hub in Orange County. We're definitely growing and going in that direction. But I see us as leading when it comes to healthcare, to technology, innovation, education. I hope that we continue to grow in ways where we become the leader, and the city that shares with our regional municipalities, sharing the wealth of information and the resources that we have to make Irvine and Orange County the best that it can be.
Can you tell me a bit more about Irvine's and California's transition toward carbon neutrality under your leadership?
Absolutely. I mean, we set the goal to be carbon neutral by 2030, which definitely is much faster than what the state is moving at. And I think we're doing that because we feel that we have the resources and the will to be able to do that. Right now, we're having stakeholder meetings with businesses, with developers, and so many other people in the community, to really get a feel for what everyone is capable of doing. And so, when we're building policies on electrification or renewable energies and things like that, we want to make sure that everyone is on board. Again, a small group of people doing all the work isn't going to bring the change that we need to see. We need everyone doing their part. And we're doing that from the top bottom when it comes to policy, and we're doing it from the grassroots up, with our Cool Block program in Irvine. And that's a program where neighborhoods are getting together and changing their light bulbs to LED, upgrading their landscaping from just grass to drought resistant plants, making sure that they're helping each other out, to really take care of their own neighborhood. And through that program, we have, I think it's over 250 blocks in our city that are participating, and just by their actions alone, we have done such a great deal of reducing our carbon footprint. And so I'm hoping that that program is going to grow as well, because it really puts the power back to the people to make those changes.
And I think this is not only setting up a certain mark for the city or California, but it's showing an example to the whole world.
Absolutely. We were actually recognized at the C40 conference in Argentina this past year for this work of building community and having the community be involved in our goals to be carbon neutral.
I'd love to hear that. I'm excited to see progress down the line as well. And I guess my
Absolutely.
last question for today would be, what's the next thing for Mayor Can?
My gosh, I don't know. I, I, I honestly don't know. I know after these 2 years, my term is up as mayor, and I I truly love local community, and so I'm not sure what's next for me, but we'll see.
I love to hear that. Thank you so much for joining the show.
Thank you so much. This was a pleasure.
Appreciate it.